Greetings again from Bead 326, and today we're going to look at the manner in which Lincoln uses his power, really orchestrates his use of power to extend the war aims of the Civil War to two more levels. So remember, initially in his inaugural address, Lincoln makes the primary aim, number one, the aim of the Civil War, if there is going to be a war, will be to preserve the Union. It's not about ending slavery. It's about preserving the Union. Now, throughout his presidency, he's going to be pulled in a couple of different directions. And what Lincoln's going to do here is orchestrate his ability to use his power to add two more levels of meaning to the war, two more war aims. So on one side, in his own political party, the Republicans, and one of their primary leaders was Charles Sumner, a senator from Massachusetts. These people wanted Lincoln to immediately make the war all about this. Ending slavery immediately. Make that the cause of the war right away. Now, Lincoln refused to take on that goal, and here's one of the major reasons. On the other side, he's dealing with border states. These were slave states not in the Confederacy, and there were four of them: Missouri, Kentucky, Delaware, and Maryland. And so what Lincoln believes, and he's probably right, is that if in 1861 and early 1862 he makes ending slavery a major purpose of the war, that could drive these border states into the arms of the Confederacy. And one of my favorite Lincoln quotes is this: "It would be nice if we could have God on our side, but we've got to have Kentucky." And so what Lincoln does is resist the attempt by the radicals to make it a war immediately to end slavery, even though he wants to see slavery brought to an end someday. He holds off on this in order to keep, in a sense, the border states in the fold. Now, here's what changes his mind and moves him to go to another direction. In September 1862, we have the single bloodiest day ever on American soil. So what Lee has done is take the Confederate forces, he's crossed the Potomac, he's gone into Union territory in the state of Maryland. And remember, Washington, D.C. is completely surrounded by the state of Maryland. And Maryland is a slave state, but it's not in the Confederacy, it's in the Union. So what Lee is trying to do is win a major victory on Union soil, which will hopefully generate support for his Confederacy from European countries like England and France. And so this is a big battle, and here's the results. It's a costly Union victory. There are over 20,000 casualties, maybe 23,000 casualties on each side combined, and this victory prompts Lincoln to do this. and he'd been discussing this with his cabinet. He said that he's planning on issuing some kind of an Emancipation Proclamation, and he will do so if there's according to the advice, based on the advice of his cabinet, if the Union wins a major victory. And that's the Battle of Antietam. And so what Lincoln does is issue a preliminary proclamation in the second half then of 1862, which says this, that the Confederate States have until January 1st to give up their attempt to break away and form a new nation. If they don't, the Emancipation Proclamation will be directly issued on January 1st, 1863, and here's what it will do. Now, this is a point that most people don't understand, and so here we go. What the Emancipation Proclamation is going to do is free slaves in the Confederate States. It doesn't do anything to slavery in the border states like Kentucky, which are not part of the Confederacy, even though they have slavery. And here's how Lincoln justified what he did. He believed that the Constitution gave the president extraordinary war powers. Since the Confederacy was using slaves to wage the war, like dig fortification and plant and harvest crops that would be used to feed the troops, he therefore believed that the Constitution gave him the extraordinary wartime power to free those slaves. It doesn't free slaves in the border states, and that's why in the border states that are slave states, that's why the 13th Amendment will eventually end slavery in the U.S. And that's the story that's told in the Spielberg film Lincoln, which came out in about 2011, 2012. So, Emancipation Proclamation ends slavery in the Confederate States. Later, the 13th Amendment will end slavery altogether in the United States, but that doesn't come until later. Had there not been a 13th Amendment, the Civil War could have ended and there would still be slavery in those 4 border states, who were slave states but not part of the Confederacy. And so here, Lincoln is extending the war aims to another level. By the way, when he signs the Emancipation Proclamation, he gives the first pen to Charles Sumner, the abolitionist senator. So, war aims. Number 1, preserve the Union. Number 2, end slavery. So, now there are 2 war aims, and so what Lincoln is able to do in the midst of the Civil War is extend the meaning of the war to not only preserving the Union, but also bringing an end to the institution of slavery.